Dasamati Nandana Brajabara Nagara Gokula Ranjana Kana.
Greetings, dear friends and listeners. Welcome to the Vedic Perspective. I'm your host, Ralph Lorino. We're broadcasting live today from the Protect a Cow Farm Sanctuary in Port Royal, Pennsylvania. Okay, so we've been researching some ancient knowledge in regards to cow protection and how the ancient knowledge of the Vedic sages and seers relates to today's modern affairs as far as societal and cultural levels. I'd like to explain once again why we're investigating the Vedic knowledge and why that's so important. Vedic knowledge was written down 5,000 years ago, but actually it's much, much older than that because it was received first in an oral tradition, and then as the memory of man degraded, writing came into effect. So the oral tradition extends much further back in history than the written tradition does, because although we take it to be that writing is a great sign of the advancement of man, according to Vedic literature, it was actually a sign of the devolution of man, because before 5,000 years ago, it was a previous age in which people were more enlightened and had sharper intelligences and better memory, and they could understand and completely comprehend and remember knowledge just by remembering. They didn't need writing as an aid to help them remember the knowledge. So once again, this Vedic knowledge is very old and very ancient. And the other important feature of Vedic knowledge is that it has an unbroken line of teachers since 5,000 years ago up to the present day, culminating in the teachings and writings of Bhaktivedanta Swami. So there's a lot of ancient knowledge from different regions of the world and different cultures from around the world. But sometimes, although it has a lot of wisdom and truth, the knowledge becomes a bit confused because there's no modern teacher and no unbroken line of teachers that can relate the ancient knowledge in its true form as it is to the current mind of man and make it in context of modern societal affairs. So the Vedic knowledge has some very unique aspects. It's very ancient, and it has an unbroken line of teachers extending to the current day, which helps us to put it into proper context. Also, whether we agree or whether we disagree, that isn't really the issue. The issue is that we're going to be presenting this knowledge as it is. Therefore, people can make a determination as to whether it would be beneficial in their lives to try to delve into this knowledge, to try to understand the different aspects of this knowledge and how it relates to modern affairs. It's as it is, so therefore we can make a true determination as to what the knowledge is and whether it can benefit us in today's modern world. Also, another important feature of Vedic knowledge is that it speaks of in the past that for many, many thousands and hundreds of thousands of years that societies were extremely advanced in the past, and that this whole notion that man only became civilized 5,000 years ago is a total fraud and a total lie, and that in the past, the entire world, before 5,000 years ago, was united in one Vedic culture, in one Vedic society, and that there were different communications between the different peoples of the world, and they all understood this knowledge, and, although it may have been slightly different for different cultures, and it may have been used in different ways in different cultures, still everyone was dwelling in this ancient knowledge of the Vedas and were using it for the benefit and upliftment of mankind. As one example of this, we can see all around the world that people built pyramids, whether it was Egypt or India or Europe or Russia or America or Central America or South America, that people took to building a certain type of structure called the pyramid. And how else can this be explained that all these cultures who supposedly had no connection with each other could all decide to, on their own, build the same types of structure? I believe one of the main functions of pyramids is that it was a sign from the people in the past, because that they knew this age of Kali, which is what we're going to be discussing today, the age of Kali. What are the signs and symptoms of this age, which began 5,000 years ago? They knew this age was coming. So they left us signs, and they left us monuments, and they left us knowledge that was in stone so that it could survive up until the current age, to let people know that there was an advanced civilization in the past, that there was ancient knowledge, and that this knowledge is encoded within the buildings. As we can see with the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Egypt, that there's so much information that can be gathered from this pyramid. And also just the very fact of how it was built, so technologically superior, so precisely fitted, so incredibly done, that this alone is a communication to the people in the future that yes, we were advanced, that yes, we did have incredible societies with high technology, and that we are trying to communicate this into the future so that these monuments would survive over the course of time and that people could understand this. Of course, the modern theory rejects all this because it's a total lie and a total fraud that they're trying to perpetrate on people, that now in this culture and these societies that we have today are the pinnacle of human civilization, although the Vedic literatures directly refute this. And they say that actually the age of Kali is often marked by a devolution of the consciousness of man. Also, a lot of the ancient technologies that people had were more of a subtle spiritual technology. For example, the yogic masters of the past, they could travel at the speed of the mind. They could communicate with people far away through mental powers without the use of a cell phone. They could see different events happening around the world through a kind of spiritual television in the heart. So many of the technologies that we have today are actually to make up for the psychic and yogic powers that have been lost due to the degradation of the age of Kali. These are also, it's like the example of writing, whereas today we see writing as some kind of incredible advancement of mankind. The Vedas speak that this was actually a devolution of mankind as a crutch in order to help them to remember knowledge which they could in the past remember automatically and had perfect memories. The same thing goes with the other things, like, for example, the cell phone, so that we can talk over vast distances very easily and immediately. This was a yogic power that people had in the past. Television is to replace our yogic power, our yogic siddhi of being able to see events in the heart that were happening all around the different parts of the world. And these ancient societies were all united, and there was a one governing king that was very extremely righteous, and not like modern-day kings who exploit the people, who hoard the wealth for themselves, and the executive heads that are so corrupted. In the past, the ancient kings and saints and rishis, they had the best interest of mankind at heart. And they had a great love for mankind, and not only for mankind, but also for all the creatures of the earth, whether they be animals or plants or trees. Everything was going on in a fashion for the upliftment of all the members of society, which extended beyond the human beings into the animal and plant kingdom, and that they were concerned that everyone was allowed to live in peace and harmony and live out their life in a prosperous way. So these are some things which are very, very much against the modern-day so-called theories of the so-called scholars, who are nothing but foolish rascals in the garb of scholarly educators that are misleading people and giving them a false impression of what the past was like. So the knowledge that we've been delving into is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And as I've mentioned before, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the author himself, Srila Vyasadeva. So the Vedanta Sutra is actually all the Vedic literatures, which are many, many thousands and very, very voluminous, that they understood that people in the future would not be able to read and comprehend all these literatures because it's so vast, and that the attention span and the memory span of people of the current age would be very much reduced. So therefore, Srila Vyasadeva, he wrote the Vedic literatures down in code form, or very short form, and that's the Vedanta Sutra. And then the Srimad Bhagavatam takes that one step further in that this is the commentary on the codes. So it is the cream of the Vedic literature. It is the essence of the Vedic literature in a form that today's modern man can digest and comprehend. So what we've been discussing is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 17. Now, in this chapter, it describes the beginning of this age of Kali and how it all came about and how this age was the beginning of the degradation of mankind. So the king or emperor of the world at that time was Maharaj Parikshit. He was ruling over a perfected society that extended to all the corners of the globe. All these people of the ancient past cultures were in contact with each other. They were all living in peace and harmony. And then this is the description of when the disharmony started to come into this present age and the root cause for all the quarrel and hypocrisy of this age. So Maharaj Parikshit got messages that in one part of his kingdom, this may be in somewhere around Afghanistan, something like that, there was a cow and a bull that were being abused by a certain personality named Kali. So as soon as Maharaj Parikshit understood this fact, he immediately mounted on his chariot and took a procession with him to try to find out what was going on, because in that time no animal was allowed to be abused or tortured or slaughtered, especially for the tongue and the satisfaction of the tongue. So he immediately went to find out what was going on, and when he came upon the scene, he could see that there was a man dressed in royal dress with a crown. Although he had no righteousness and he had no piety within him, he still had taken the dress of a king, and he was beating on the legs of a cow and bull. And he had beaten 3 of the legs to where they were broken, and there was only 1 leg left, and that is considered to be truthfulness, is the only leg left of religion in this age of Kali. So it is very important in this age. The only leg of religion left in the age of Kali is truthfulness. So Maharaj Parikshit approaches Kali, and he was ready to kill him for his offenses of beating innocent cows and bulls. And these were not just ordinary cow and bull. They were actually, the cow was Mother Earth, who had taken the form of a cow, and the bull was Dharma, or righteousness, who had taken the form of a bull. So this is not just ordinary cow and bull that were being beaten. It's actually, on an archetype level, symbolic of the degradation and the destruction of Mother Earth and the principles of religion. To kill the offender for his assault on Mother Earth and on righteousness, but Kali, at just the right moment, he surrendered to the king, and he took off his false crown and his false religious garb and his false garb of being a king. Now, in the past, the warriors had a code of conduct. Part of that code was that you could not kill an enemy that was surrendered to you. So Kali's timely surrender prevents him from being killed, and Maharaj Parikshit is speaking to Kali and the cow and bull of religion and Mother Earth. And so we're going to pick up the story at that point. So where we left off is text 34. So I'm going to read that text, and we're going to continue. I've given you the background of the situation, and we're going to move forward now. So the translation of text 34. In all sacrificial ceremonies, although sometimes a demigod is worshipped, the Supreme Lord, personality of Godhead, is worshipped because he is the supersoul of everyone and exists both inside and outside like the air. Thus, it is he only who awards all welfare to the worshipper. Purport by Bhaktivedanta Swami. It is even sometimes seen that demigods like Indra and Chandra are worshipped and offered sacrificial awards. Yet the rewards of all such sacrifices are awarded to the worshipper by the Supreme Lord, and it is the Lord alone who can offer all welfare to the worshipper. The demigods, although worshipped, cannot do anything without the sanction of the Lord, because the Lord is the supersoul of everyone, both moving and non-moving. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, text 23, the Lord himself confirms this in the following sloka. Whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, he is really meant for me alone, but it is offered without true understanding. The fact is that the Supreme Lord is one without a second. There is no God other than the Lord himself. Thus the Supreme Lord is eternally transcendental to the material creation. But there are many who worship the demigods like the sun, the moon, and Indra, who are only material representatives of the Supreme Lord.